Something about framing it and putting it on a birthday
If you look
cake.
at the back of his head, you would know.
Yeah, if you look at the sunburn on his head, then you would understand what we're
That's
talking
good
about.
You remember what sunburn I'm talking about?
Hmm?
You remember what I'm
Sunburn?
talking
Looks
about?
like Neapolitan there.
Sunburn on somebody else?
Oh, I had.
We got a fresh haircut and it's been cloudy all week, so I ain't had to worry
I
about
had
it.
a hat like this. It's got that window in the back, you know. And we were out just swimming at the lake, maybe getting overserved. I don't know.
Ding Dong had it that way.
Dude, I had this sunburn right here, and this one too, right? So it was glasses, like a hard glass line, a red stripe, and a red window right here. It was pretty awesome.
At least mine's on the back of my head. I wear a hat all the time, so it blends if I keep my hat
you can
on.
make it go away.
Yeah, it'd be all right. You'll work that out. Yeah, you'll work that out. Well, man, I appreciate all you guys coming to join us for another free seminar. Tonight, you know, we're just going to talk about kind of current conditions and kind of open forum. Anything you guys want to talk about? Spring bass fishing, we're starting to get kind of post-spawn. We've got definitely spawn going on. It's April. There's always spawn going on in April. We're starting to get post-spawn fish. And I'm sure some of you guys have been fishing are seeing some skinnier fish. And, man, that wind just ain't letting up on us, is it? Like,
Oh, my God.
We've had to fish in the windiest conditions. So I guess, you know, what we'll kind of key in on tonight is how to deal with the wind, how to fish in the windy conditions during the spawn and post-spawn period, and how to catch some of these fish that in the immediate post-spawn, these fish can be somewhat funky before they start grouping back up, you know, especially when you don't have shallow cover in the lake. Like right now, we just don't have shallow cover in the lake at all. Like none to speak of. So that really, you know, normally on a southern fishery, you know, on Lake Fork, those fish get down spawning, you kind of focus on those shallow flooded grasses and you throw a frog and you throw a swim jig and, and then the brim start bedding and you kind of fish around that shallow cover around the brim beds. And has anybody seen any brim beds on Fork yet?
I don't think any fresh ones.
I've seen some on some smaller lakes, and those are always a little bit ahead. I haven't seen any on Fork. I don't know if anybody else has seen any, but it's gonna happen like any day, right? Like the shad spawn's been going on for a little while now. The brim are going to start spawning any day, and for sure have your 360 running in that shallow water and look for them, because when you find a brim bed, that's one showing up surefire pattern where you can do some damage. Like, and it's real simple with a Humminbird 360. If you're fortunate enough to have that, when you see that brim bed, you just stop well out away from it, and you don't fish the brim bed itself. You fish everything around it. So every stump you see around there is going to be your main option and target right now on Lake Fork. You're just going to take your little light Texas rig or small jig and just pitch and flip it to every stump in that area. Yes. And I guarantee you guys will catch some darn big bass really consistently doing that. It's the simplest. It's like fishing in a pond, right? You just take a pocket, and that pocket is your pond, and you comb that pocket over for brim bed, and when you find one, you hit every stump near it, just like you're fishing a pond. And really simple fishing, but it's really, really effective. Really effective. Every year on Lake Fork that happens. So that's coming up. But Cord, I know you've been out here a little bit on Fork here lately. Finally home from some of your tournament schedule in the last couple of weeks. So talk to me, man. What's been going on in your boat?
Man, we've pretty much been running and gunning, running the bank. Haven't been doing a whole lot out deep. Every once in a while, like today, like we scooted out this afternoon, threw some line throughs on some points. You know, like I was seeing some fish on the live. They're all shad chasers. Every one of the fish I'm catching are
focusing on shad spawn type deal?
The shad spawn, and just pretty much like I've been pretty much going old school. I drive around. I mean, like obviously I got some of my good stretches I always run, but I just drive around, and if I see wind on a bank and some birds, I stop.
Birds.
Like pretty much just chasing birds around, you know, like some of the windy points and like some of them little pockets. And most of them are the ones that you would never want to fish. I've had my best success on the ugliest banks you can find. Like, if it looks good, don't fish it.
That's
like, if it's got good-looking, you know, docks on it, or it looks like it's got brush and stuff on it, it's too much, I guess. Like, if there's, like, a few little stumps on it.
It's too much. It's too many boats been going in there.
Yeah.
Because it looks good, usually what it is.
Pretty much, but yeah, like, you go to the opposite bank that looks ugly and just kind of mucky, and we can go down it. If there's a couple birds on it, pretty much the chatterbaits, spinnerbaits, and then if the days that stay cloudy and overcast, it's been pretty consistent on pretty much the top water almost all day.
Yeah.
You know, just kind of in and out with it. You know, like you'll kind of go through a lull, and then you'll pick up the chatterbait or spinnerbait, wind it around, and then it gets dark enough, you know, the clouds roll back over, we'll pick a buzzbait up, or that Speedwake's been catching some pretty good fish too.
Speedwake's been good.
It has been really good.
Speedwake's been a good bait. That's something that you got to consider when you're dealing with a low water situation like we are here. Most of you guys in this crowd tonight are probably locals, right? How many of you guys are local to Lake Fork?
2.
2. 3, they've got a kind of. Okay, so a few of y'all are local, maybe not so many. But for those of us that are, how many guys in the crowd fish Lake Fork year in, year out? Everybody. Okay. So you're used to fishing Lake Fork, and you've got these areas and these stretches that produce fish every year, right? And there is those areas on Lake Fork that produce fish every year. Then the lake gets low, the taper of the bottom, the contours of the bottom changes, right? Because now you have an area that's set up right for spawning fish, flat, whatever. Now you bring that water out 6 foot, maybe that has a steeper drop and they don't want to spawn in there anymore. Or maybe it has a softer bottom, they don't want to spawn anymore. You used to fish this point right here because in 0 to 3 foot it tapered out the right way and set up right. But in 6 foot, what would normally be 6 foot to 9 foot, it doesn't taper the same way and it's not nearly as good, right? So it becomes a new lake. And every guy out here has had to kind of learn that the hard way this year. Or, a lot of us knew going into it, but we've had to kind of relearn the lake and refine the areas and do some stuff differently than what we normally would as far as where we fish. So you got to keep that in mind. That just because you fished this lake for 5 years now or whatever, 2 years, 3 years, whatever, and you've had productivity in this one area, when the lake level changes, it changes the bottom contours. And that changes everything. Because everything about fishing Lake Fork is bottom contours. I'll tell you guys right now, it has nothing to do with cover. Because in case y'all haven't noticed, they got cover anywhere they want it on this pond. I mean, there is timber, docks, brush, and when the lake's full grass, all over the lake. They don't have to go anywhere to find cover. They can find it wherever they want to. So everything that you focus on as far as your decisions on where to fish on this lake need to be concentrated on bottom contours. And then just fish whatever cover is present in that area. Even in areas sometimes that are wide open and have no cover, they appear to have no cover. If they have the right bottom contours, especially this time of year as far as the points and stuff like that go, they got the right bottom content, the hardness of bottom, some shell, some clay, some rock, whatever it may be. Those areas can still hold fish even with no cover in them this time of year, especially because we talked about that brim bed deal just briefly. That's the next thing. But right now is the shad spawn.
Yep.
And a shad spawn can pop up anywhere. Even in full lake conditions. I've had some of the weirdest days where I'm driving going to fish a certain area and I just noticed 2 or 3 birds on the bank. And like Court said, it's usually with the wind. Usually wind there too. Wind and birds. And then you pull in there and you catch 17 and you're like, I've never fished this bank in my life. There's nothing here. Why are they here? It's just, that's where the wind blew the plankton that day. That's where the shad had the right bottom content to spawn on, whatever it may be. A shad spawn can pop up all over the lake. So what Cord's saying is the exact way to do it right now, guys. And it's hard to navigate the lake, I get that. But cover as much water as you can on your big motor, even idling if you have to. Look for birds. Look for birds and wind. And when you find that, that's your #1 key. The birds are going to identify shad. And here's another way to really know you have good amounts of shad. A blue heron is a solo hunter. Everybody know what a blue heron is? Blue heron is a solo hunter. Most of the year, that bird will stand alone. He will not let another bird get near him most of the year. Like, have you ever seen a blue heron there and another bird, a white bird, another blue one comes in, and he flies over squawking at him real loud and runs him off? Y'all ever seen that? That happens throughout the year. During the shad spawn, you'll actually see 3, 4, 5, 6, however many blue herons next to each other on the bank. It's the only time of year you see that, is when the shad are spawning. So when you see that, there's a shad spawn or a big group of shad are hanging out right there. That's the only reason those birds tolerate each other. They're kind of like fishing guides. They don't want to be near each other. You know, every time I hear 2 herons going to fight each other, I'm like, well, there goes Caldemar and Hoffman again. You know, arguing over a fishing hole. But no, that's really the way to do it. And the top water and the wake baits have been the best baits for me as well. Yeah. Even better than the swim baits. Now, the one bait that's coming on is the hollow belly swim bait. The water's getting warm enough that hollow belly swim bait's dangerous. It's such a unique bait, the way it vibrates. It's really coming on lately.
The one issue that I've had, and like even today, like I had a full day trip today, and we had a big, and it's been kind of off and on, is they're not eating it real good. They'll just come up and they're like slapping at it. You know, like we've actually hooked a couple of them like in the belly or something, you know, that come up and swap. You set the hook on it, and you're like, what the world? And he'll come in, and it'll be like hooked in the side or in the top of the head. They're just coming up there and they're slapping at it, you know, and that'll happen 10 or 15 times a day, you know, and it's, if you downsize, they almost don't want it. Like I found a couple dead shad today, like side by side my chatterbait, and they're like the perfect size. Yeah. But they'll come up, swipe at it. So I've had some issues throwing the hollow belly. I mean, you'll get bit. Yep. But I'm having problems with them eating it good, and it may be the small fish coming up there just. Well, being ornery, you know.
One thing you can do too is we normally rig that hollow belly, especially if you're in a timbered area, you're going to rig it on a weedless, belly weighted hook, 4-aught or 5-aught keel weighted swim bait hook. But if you're getting those short strikes on that hollow belly, you know, if you can, and you can see most timbers, so we're fishing that hollow belly fast enough. It's not very far under the surface, right? And you can see all the timbers, so you can kind of steer the lanes. Throw it on an 1/8 top hook jig head. I don't know if y'all tried that yet, but that's not going to solve all the problem of the fish short striking it, but it will get some better hookup ratio when they short strike it. But if they'll come up and bite a top water with treble hooks or a wake bait with treble hooks, just throw that. Yeah. Because you got a lot better chance of hooking them on that. But the hollow belly's coming on, and it'll continue to, that swim bait, the hollow belly swim bait will continue to get better and better and better. Just to explain something about the shad spawn. So the threadfin shad spawn happens early. And then it kind of goes away. Unless it's real overcast, the threadfin shad spawn will kind of go away after about the first hour of the day. Right? So that threadfin shad spawn, you got to be up there early. Does everybody know the difference between threadfin and gizzard shad? Yep, everybody, okay, good. So that deal kind of goes early, and you want to throw, you know, like I'll throw like the catwalk walking topwater, or a yellow magic popper, or the little 4.5-inch hollow belly. You know, threadfin are a little bit smaller, so we'll throw those type of baits. But then once you move on throughout the day and you're just kind of fishing windy points where you see birds or whatever, what I believe is going on is those are just schools of gizzard shad that are getting pushed up on points and bass are teeing off on them. And it's bigger bass usually. And so once I feel like I've moved on from the threadfin shad spawn in the morning, and now I'm just kind of hunting the random school of fish here or there on a point, I'll transition into bigger baits. I'll throw the bigger topwaters. What I'll throw is the Mag Dog from 6 Cents. And I'll throw a little bit bigger swim baits. I'll throw a bigger hollow body or a line through swim bait or a glide bait. That wake shad can actually play on both. It's kind of an in-between profile, and it's a really good action, so the wake shad can kind of play on both. But the one bait that works on both really, really well, that just doesn't really ever get talked about, is a jerkbait. Yeah. Even if that jerkbait is digging in clay in 1 and 2 foot of water, throw that jerkbait on a shad spawn, guys. It's really effective. It's really easy to fish. You don't have to be patient. Normally you think of jerkbait fishing, you think of twitch, pause. This guy loves it. He does it a lot in the cold water. Twitch, pause. I love a jerkbait right now because I don't have to pause nothing. I'm just like, it's just my arm is sore 2 hours into the day from jerking on that jerkbait so much. I mean, it's nonstop. So, but do that. Throw that jerkbait, jerk it aggressively, jerk it fast. And that's what makes them react. That jerkbait's bouncing all over the place on that point. And when you're dealing with a situation with shad spawn fish that have so much bait, yeah,
he was laughing at you.
Absolutely, a jerkbait deal. He knows. He knows about that jerkbait deal. That's that top secret guide stuff, isn't it, boy? That's right. Okay. He's excited. He's fired. And I'll talk back to him now. He's real fired up. He's real fired up. But that kid's been hearing my voice since he was like a week old or something. That was his first seminar. He's like, he's a week old. I kind of lost track of where I was here. Talking about jerkbaits, I know.
The jerkbaits on the point.
Yeah, fishing it real fast. But, you know, when you're dealing with bass that are looking at so much real bait, right? Like they're looking at so much of the real thing. At times it can be hard to get those fish to commit and eat something that's not real. In my opinion, one of the best ways to do it is to throw something very erratic and very reactive. So that's why I think a jerkbait plays so well. You think about all the baits that we're throwing on there, you know, a topwater bait's doing making noise. That wake shad's rattling and making noise and making a wake at the surface. It's doing something to call those fish's attention away from the real shad and get their attention on your bait. Nothing does that better than a jerkbait just bouncing all over the clay, bouncing back and forth and doing all kinds of crazy stuff that a jerkbait does. So it's a really, really good bait, and that's why. Yeah. And you can throw it on bigger line this time of year because you're not trying to get it deep. You can throw it up on 15 or 17 pound monofilament just to give you some stretch for those little hooks, but you get that bigger line and you can actually kind of, if those fish start running towards that stump, you can lean on them a little bit, you know, when you need to. you can get away with bigger line on a jerkbait this time of year. As long as you can cast it in all that wind.
Yeah,
that's the deal.
fun.
Casting a jerkbait in the wind ain't always fun. You got to go. Make sure you're going with the wind when you're doing that, right?
Like the one I like to use, like we're doing stuff like this to try to help digging in. Like some of the, like I'm catching a lot of my fish that I don't know how I'm not seeing their backs out of the water. Like hitting the bank with like a chatterbait and get like 3 cranks off in the mud and catching like 3 and 4 pounders, and I'm like, how am I not like visually seeing these fish? But I like to go old school and throw like the old rogues, the old floating, you know, like guys back in the day.
Rogues, good.
You know, because it doesn't dig quite as hard. Like that little bit of pause in between, it floats up pretty quick. It's really buoyant. So you can kind of keep it from digging or hanging on them little root systems that are off those points. You know, you get them little snags here and there, and it's that and I like it because it's a little bit bigger profile than a lot of your jerkbaits out there. It's a little bit longer, it's a little bit fatter across the back. So and to me, it's got a lot more of a distinct sound than most of them. You know, most of them have either the hard knock or like a heavier rattle. Those are like the real fine, like a tick, tick, tick rattle in them. You know, they're like little bitty baby BBs in them. Yeah,
it's like they're little brass BBs instead of lead or something.
Yeah. They're like really fine, you know, so it's got a different sound, and that's one that, you know, I go to, and I, you know, keep it pretty natural in color. You know, I throw like the black and chrome or something like that.
Everything's just shad colored on that Shad Spawn deal right now. Everything's just, you know, white, gray, silver. I mean, just shad colors. Don't get too elaborate with that. If you want to throw a chartreuse in there once in a while to try something different, sure, no problem. That's fine too.
The chartreuse is about the only
variance.
It's about the only odd color. Everything's like solid white, or there'll be a couple tips of the skirt on a chatterbait or spinnerbait that'll have a little bit of that, or it'll be an all white and all color the tail up in chartreuse on a little swim bait trailer or something. That's about it. Other than that, pretty simple.
Yep. It's in. How many people have fished Lake Ford recently? Everybody? Most of y'all? Okay. How many people have struggled? Right. Here's the deal. When a Shad Spawn's going on, when you miss it, it sucks. Like, the whole day sucks. Like, if you miss the Shad Spawn and you don't capitalize on that bite at some point, it's hard to catch them. Especially right now, we would normally have spawning fish that would be easier to see. There's just not very many areas on the lake where the spawning fish are visible, and the ones that are visible are getting fished for so hard they're hard to catch. That's what's happening. I've seen a lot of comments lately on live streams and stuff, guys asking about spawning fish, sight fishing, what's going on, da-da-da-da. Dudes are running the bank trying to find spawning fish, and these spawning fish, you're having to get so shallow. Okay, I think a lot of them are just spawning deeper where you can't see them because of the condition of the lake, the water color in the lake. And because so many boats are running up shallow, keeping the water stirred up. And it just makes it dirtier. And then you really can't see them. But even when you get in an area where you can't see them, they're a lot harder to catch than they have been in years past. And I think that's just a situation where it is really, really difficult to get on a stretch of bedfish that hasn't seen a lot of boats come through fishing for. And there's a lot of guys on this lake that are damn good. And they're not going, like, if they're there first, they're going to catch that fish. And that fish has already been caught by the time you get to it, and he's harder to catch. That's just the reality of this lake and the situation it's in this year. If we had better clarity, you'd be able to see those fish spawning out in 2, 3, 4 foot of water. You know, that's what we need. We need those fish. There's nothing on the bank for them to spawn on. Everybody understand a bass is going to spawn on something. Very rarely will a bass spawn on an open piece of dirt. Almost every bass you'll see spawning will be on something. A lot of times it's those little pencil reed heads or whatever. We have those little thin reeds. Yeah. I don't know what they're called.
I don't know.
But those, y'all talking about those little thin tufts of green little mini reeds that are about that tall out of the water. When the lake's full, those bass love to get right up on those and spawn, but they get right next to them when they spawn. Right now, they don't have anything other than laydowns and standing timber. So they're spawning next to standing timber and laydowns. That's where they're making their beds when you see them. But they don't have anything right on the bank to get on unless there's a stump right there on the bank. So I think so many of them are spawning out in that timber that's just where you can't see it. And I know they are because, you know, you back off and you get slow and quiet and you pick up a light Texas rig or a Cinco or a wacky worm and you just go to pitching every timber in 2 to 4 foot of water and you catch fish with bloody tails. Yeah. You know what I mean? So, like, we know they're spawning out there. It's just fishing for spawning bass when you're not actually visually knowing they're there and throwing at them over and over again. Boys, that's a slow bite. Like, for the most part, that's a really slow bite. on a lake that gets the pressure that this lake does. If this lake didn't get the pressure, them spawning bass would bite good, and you could make a day just going around pitching and flipping. But those fish are seeing baits and having boats go right over their heads, you know, for the guys looking on the bank. So those fish are getting unbelievable amounts of pressure on them every day. And so you're just not going to get very many of them to bite unless you can see them and throw that bait at them over and over again and entice them to bite, right? So it's just the spawning bass, targeting the bass on beds, that situation is extremely difficult this year. Extremely, I mean, almost non-existent. It's very, very difficult this year.
And like half of them, if you do slow down, like I've had this several times, like you do want to slow down and pitch around a little bit. You'll pitch at a stump, and it'll just like tick, and let it go. And you flip back in there, and it's just like
a bedfish would sometimes.
It's exactly what you're flipping to, but you have no idea the mood of that fish. And if you can see one
and judge his temperament,
you can know like if they're going to swimming off or if she's circling it and she's nipping at it, you know. And like
one of the hardest things to do in bass fishing is to fish for a bedfish without being able to see it.
Yep.
It's one of the hardest things to do.
It's frustrating because she'll bite twice, and then you flip for another 5 or 10 minutes, and she never comes back. You're like, well, is she just like, am I hitting her in the head and she's spooking off? Like you don't know what you're doing.
Well, and then too, on top of that, like you do that, right? Let's say you do that. Let's say you get a bite and spit, and you commit to it, and you spend like you would on a bed 20 minutes or 30 minutes. Well, normally you'd do that if the fish is a big fish that you want to catch. You might be doing that for a 1.5 pounder. Yeah. Like he might be biting and spitting because he can't fit your Texas rig in his mouth, guys. Yeah. He might weigh 3/4 pound. You don't know when you can't see him.
Yeah.
So it's a gamble, man. When you're blind bed fishing, which is what I call it, blind bed fishing, it is such a gamble. And if you don't get that fish to bite, and you know he's there, you feel like he's there, and you can't see him, you can waste so much of your day on 2 or 3 fish, and by the end of the day, you're like, dude, I can catch nothing. Like I caught 2 dinks or 2 whatever, you know. It can get away from you real quick. And so there's a lot of guys. I mean, there is a lot of guys that are struggling out here right now. Because the shad spawn, you got to be pretty sharp on. You got to be in the right area at the right time on the shad spawn. You get your timing off on the shallow points, you're going to suck. You miss the threadfin shad early in the morning, you don't know where to go to find it, you don't land on it, you're going to suck. Like, that shad spawn deal is not going to just be everywhere all the time. It's amazing when you hit it. And you see some guys posting some pictures, having some awesome days here and there. That's what's happening. They're hitting the shad spawn right. It's unbelievable. You see a guy post and says, we caught 20 or 30 fish today. He probably caught them all in 45 minutes.
They probably didn't get bit maybe one time the rest of the day.
Yeah.
I guarantee like the guys you do talk to, just like guides or just other guys, like, man, you catching them? Man, we caught like 30 pounds of our best 5 in like 15 minutes, but we ain't got bit again, and it'd be 3:30 in the afternoon. Yeah. Like we caught it in 10, 15 minutes this morning, and that was one of those, they just luck of the draw, or they knew just like right spot at the right time, bam, 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 and then it's just like, now what do I do?
And then they go back out, you know, if it's a guide and he goes back out the next day, and let's say that the shad spawn doesn't happen there. Mm-hmm. Now what's that guy got at the end of the day?
Yes.
0 maybe, 1 or 2 if he grinds a few bites out here or there. I mean, that's the nature of the time of year we're in. When you can't see the bedfish and the shad are spawning, you've got to kind of get a little bit lucky and hit it right. I mean, that's one of the toughest things. A shad spawn is a tough deal as a guide customer, because even when you get it dialed in, right? Like I've had this happen in past Aprils. I had one of the most unbelievable shad spawn bites I've ever had in my life in Birch Creek 4 years ago, something like that, give or take a year. I had a little pocket in Birch, and I had grass coming out on both points at the mouth of the pocket. And every morning those shad were spawning on both points. And that right in the middle of that pocket in the entrance, it was exactly 6 foot deep. I could just power pole down in the middle of that drain that ran out between those 2 points, and I could throw it at both points. And I would literally pull up and power pole down in that drain every day and look at my customers and be like, y'all ready? Is your knot good? All right, let's go. And we would sit there for the first hour and catch 30, give or take. I mean sometimes 20, sometimes 25, sometimes 40. But it was that first hour was like unbelievable. And then for the beginning of that lasted for probably 2 weeks. That shad spawn happened on that grass every day for 2 weeks. And then, so like in that second week of that first week, there was other bedfish and stuff that we would do throughout the day and to make a good day. In that second week, we would go catch 30 fish in the first hour of the morning, 30 fish, and most of them over 3 or 4 pounds, up to 7, 8 pounds. I mean, unbelievable shad spawn bass. But what would happen in that second week was the bedfish were leaving. They were all the bedfish that I had, you know, figured out and located. They were all finishing up and leaving. And I didn't have any new ones coming in. And I really didn't have no other way to catch them the rest of the day that I knew. You know, we were just going around grinding, trying to find a bite. So we would go in there for the first hour and catch 30, and then I would bring my guys back to the boat ramp, and they'd be like, "Whew, man, it was tough today." And I go, y'all forget that we caught 30 in the first hour this morning? They're like, "Oh, man, yeah." Like, because you fish for 7 hours and get 2 bites, you're like, "Dang, dude, it's tough." Well, yeah, but it wasn't. You know, for the first hour, it was amazing, you know. But they almost forget about that first hour of the day sometimes. Yeah. Good old Shad Spawn. It's a love-hate relationship for a fishing guide.
It is absolutely. Because they'll move up and down. You know, that's what, like, I keep my eyes peeled. I'm like, I'm going to run, you know, like your milk run guys call it. Like, that's where they've been, like, the last 2 days. And then you come around the corner and, like, there's no birds sitting on it. And you're like, Then you're looking at the next bank and the next bank. You turn, they're like, where's the birds? And, like, or like you said, like, you'll be on your way and then you'll see a spot where you can blindly see them shad just popping all up and down the bank. And you'll see them shad like, screw it. I'm like, I'll go check my good stuff later. I'm pulling here and just down the bank, like boating 6 foot of water, hitting the bank every time, and just grinding it out. Like I said, I'll give one bait and one the other bait and see which one does better, and we just change it up all day.
Yeah, when your fishing guide gives 2 customers 2 different moving baits, and he grabs a 3rd different moving bait, and he's on that trolling motor moving fast, he doesn't know what's going on.
Yeah,
he's just we're looking, we're trying to figure it out as we go, and that's part of this game. Hey, brother, we got some couple more chairs in here if you want one. Yeah, come on in, man. Appreciate you coming. Yeah. So the reality is, everybody posts their highlight reels, right? Everybody posts their highlight reels. When you see the picture posts, they're posting their highlight reels. The reality of bass fishing is probably more days than not throughout the year. There's probably more days like this than there's not, even as a guide on the same lake, where you're actually searching. Like, you're just trying to figure it out. You're looking for a couple bites on the same bait or in the same pattern to dial it in for your customers that day. And then the next day you start with that pattern and hope that goes off again. And sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't, and you got to start to search over. But the reality, whether you're a touring professional, a fishing guide, or you're just a weekend warrior, right? Any of those guys. The reality is, more days than not, you are going to be searching and trying to figure out a pattern as the day goes on. And on the days that you do, it goes great. And on the days that you don't, it's a grind and you catch what you can. And the guys that are good are the dudes that can manage to put a decent limit of fish in the boat on the days when they're figuring it out. That's the guys that are good, even in the professional tournament level. It's not the guys that figure out the patterns the most consistent. Because when we figure out a pattern, we're all good, right?
Yeah.
Like, listen, if you know they're biting a sinkhole on them stumps in your cove, you're real good. Like, Wheeler's going to have a hard time with you if he pulls up in that cove. You got him. Like, you got him down. We're all good when we figure out a pattern. But the guys that can be good when they have no clue and just kind of manage to put the bag together on the fly, man, that's the dudes that are the best. That's the ones that are the best in the world.
Fishing conditions and fishing what's in front of you.
Yes, fishing a day.
And just like time on the water, knowing you know, okay, well, the wind's changing, okay, this bank might be turned on, or, you know, that bank will be better, or, you know, stuff like that. Just running off intuition kind of deal, you know.
Absolutely. By the way, guys, I've got the Lowrance boat lanes that we've done. Those are here. I know some of y'all have been waiting on those. Some of y'all have pre-ordered those. The pre-ordered ones have been shipped.
Got it in the mail today.
Huh?
Got it in the mail today.
You got yours today. Good. Did anybody else order a pre-order and not get it yet?
I haven't checked, but it could be there today.
Okay. Well, if y'all need one tonight, that's fine. I can give you one, and you can send it when you get the other one. You can send me that one back. Okay. Anybody else that wants to get our boat lanes, what we did, if you don't know, if you're here and you don't know, man, I went out when the lake, you know, since the lake's been low, started back in December, and we went out and literally idled every corner of this lake and made. Yeah, he knows the good stuff. This is when he gets excited. I idled every corner of the lake, and I made some boat lanes that I feel like are very unique compared to, I mean, there's boat lanes out there that are great. I'm not telling you to not go purchase the Super Trails, I think is what Curtis calls his. I'm not telling you to not purchase Lance Vicks or Stephen Father. I think Curtis did a good job on his. But I think I put a little more into mine because we've got 2 different lake levels in our trails. Like, we have 2 different colored trails on these. So you'll see the white trails. The way they'll upload in your graph will be white trails and red trails. If the white doesn't show up on your map very good, you can adjust the color palette on your map on Lowrance, or you can adjust the color on the lines, on the trails. But white shows up great on mine, so I use that. But white trails is 6 foot low and higher. So right now, all the white trails, get it, send it, you're good. All the red trails, those are going to be good when the lake gets to 3 foot low and higher. Now, there's some of those red trails that you can probably run at 6 foot low, but if I didn't 100% know beyond a shadow of a doubt, I wasn't going to tell you guys to run it and take a chance with y'all's money, right? So some of that stuff, if you know it and you think you can run it and you want to take that chance, that's on you. I'll put them in there advising you to run it at 3 foot low and higher. There's some of those red trails that I'm still running right now at 6 foot low. I'm taking a gamble. I don't know for sure, but I'm doing it because that's part of what we do sometimes. But also what we did was we marked hazard waypoints on these trails. So you'll see little red dots that say HZRD next to trails. Anywhere, even on the buoyed boat lanes, when there's timber that's close at 6 foot low, we marked it for you. Okay? So as the lake continues to rise and gets to 5 foot low and 4 foot low, that timber that you can see right now is going to be under the water. But you'll know where it is forever because of this boat lane chip, right? So that's the deal. We've got detailed trails, and I can't begin to express to you how many trails. I'll tell you how many trails. It's 400 and some odd individual trails and over 1,500 hazard waypoints that we made. And I left for the Lowrance map, I left them as individual trails. So when it uploads in there, it's going to upload 400 individual trails. You'll have 200 and something red lines that are 3 foot, and they're all labeled 3 foot low pro lanes. And then all the white ones are labeled 6 foot low pro lanes. So you have 200 and something red ones and 200 and something white ones. I did that because it makes it customizable for you guys. If there's a trail, and those hazard waypoints get too tight and you're not comfortable. By the way, some of this stuff's tight and you're going to want to idle it the first few times you go through it for sure. You may not ever want to run it. If you don't want to run it and you want to delete that trail, you can literally go to your touchscreen on your Lowrance, select that trail, open it up, and delete that trail. And then you'll never have to run that trail, right? But if you want to keep it or maybe change it to a different color because that one spooks you a little bit, you can do that. It makes it, when I leave them as individual trails, it makes it very customizable for you guys as the user on the back end. Now, if you're wanting to go in and change all your white trails to black trails, it's going to be time consuming. You're going to be sitting in your garage for a couple hours doing that. I know because I did it. So it is time consuming that way. But I felt like it was a better product for a Lowrance graph leaving it as individual trails because that would allow you guys to take away trails if you wanted them or really kind of customize it the way you wanted to. So it also made it very accurate when I was building them doing that. So I didn't have to mark it all as one trail. I just marked it as individual trails, and it made everything exactly where I wanted it. So we're pretty excited about it. You can literally, once the lake's 3 foot low and higher, you can run pretty much to every corner of the lake. Right now, there's some trails that we didn't complete because there's no water in those areas. Right, so we can't get back there. Even though I know a trail that goes back into there, we can't get back. Like even in you can't run all the way into Coffee Creek into the bridge. You can't. So we don't have the trail complete to the Coffee Creek Bridge. We don't have the trail complete going into Oil Bay because there's no water in it. We don't have the trail complete going to Highway 19 because there's no water in it. But what I'm going to do for all of you guys that have bought it, we're saving your emails. As the lake fills up, we're going to extend those lines on into those areas as the lake fills up and make sure we get them accurate, get our hazard waypoints on them, everything else that we need. And we're going to forward you those extensions on these trails for free. So you're going to receive that once the lake starts filling back up as well. So, all right. That's I guess that was a little bit longer plug than I wanted to be. But like I said, if y'all need some boat lanes, I got a sack full of them right here. You just let me know if you want one. We can get you set up on one right now. So, you guys might have any questions about Lake Fork or fishing at any of the other lakes around the area or anything? Surely somebody has some questions. It's fishing. We're all full of questions. We all have a million questions every day while we're not getting bit, right?
I want to night fishing.
Night fishing? Ooh, I don't know. I mean,
I've heard some guys like, Doc Talk, stuff like that. Some guys catching some pretty decent ones like super early in the morning, like guys that are going out like 4 o'clock in the morning and fishing till like 9 or 10 in the morning, and typical hitting green lights, stuff like that, or that are some dock owners that I know. Like, I walked down to my dock early this morning drinking coffee, and I seen like a 6 or 7 swimming through my lights and stuff. You know, I mean, like they're up there, but it's one of those. I think it's
are they biting better during the day than during the night than they are day? I mean, I just haven't talked to anybody that's been doing it. I know there are guys that night fish year round out here, and I do think it's always been a viable thing with the amount of pressure the lake gets, because obviously the pressure goes down at night, especially this time of year. So I do think it's a viable thing and worth trying. But to give you an answer, man, I don't have that knowledge, brother. I haven't talked to you.
We're getting a boat up and going this evening, putting a part on it, so we're gonna probably go out and try it tonight. So
there you go.
Just curious about it.
We'll come back in 2 weeks and tell me how it is. How about that?
That's fine with me.
How about that? That's right. Any other questions? Nothing. Come on, it's gonna be the shortest seminar.
So I was in here getting baits yesterday.
Yes, sir.
Because the Shad Spawn is just like gone crazy for the last 3 days.
You sure you wanted to say that out loud?
Well, you can delete that shit.
Yeah, you need me to edit that? You need me to edit that? We got that. You just
people got to hear.
making me work harder. You're making me work harder. That's all right.
So I was in here getting baits, and black guy walks in, and he hears me talking about the fast cash bass. And I said, well, I haven't been able to catch it over. I was talking to the girl behind the counter, and he goes, I just caught one. 926. I said, really? I said, that's a damn nice fish right now. I said, you know, it hasn't been that easy. And he said, 6 cents draw.
Yeah.
I go, no shit, where? And he goes, I was out in those waves, out in that wind.
Yep.
And it was by the 2946.
Oh, really? Cool.
And he goes, I go, well, what are you doing in right now if you just caught one? He said, I caught 8 big fish. They wore me out.
Yeah.
And
he pulled up on the right deal at the right time with a big bait in his hand.
I'm a proud owner of one of those $85 baits.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Because he convinced me, because I've been messing, all I'm catching is mid-slops back there. Yeah. And now I know where they're all out there on that hump, is where they're out there on that hump.
Yeah.
So, food for thought. But.
Yeah. No, I mean, and that's the deal. I mean, he's doing it up here. There's guys doing it down here. I know the old area that I kind of call the pig pen from the Bassmaster covers the last couple of years, where I think it's like the big bass tournament gets caught down there almost every time they come here. Yeah. Down at the mouth of Little Cane, that little pig pen area, it's been on in there. It's a boat race to beat 3 other guides there. You know, if my customers ain't, believe it or not, I'm complaining about people being late. Like, if you're not right on time, we're going to get beat to that deal. We ain't going to catch them. But it's been really good down there. And that whole deal that we talked about on Shad Spawn, that's exactly what it is. That guy got on the stretch where them big ones pulled up to eat gizzard shad, and he had a big gizzard shad glide bait in his hand with that draw for 6 cents. And when that happens, it's insane. Like, it's the craziest stuff you ever see. It's like every cast, 7-pounder, every cast, 6-pounder, 5-pounder, 8-pounder, whatever it is. It's just nuts. When this lake opens up and shows you what swims in it, there's nothing like it in our sport. It's crazy. So that's cool that he got to experience it.
Yeah.
Really cool. Really cool.
I'm really proud of you, though. You've been on time. It's like monumental, isn't it? Well, wait, you say that, but you were late to this deal.
Court on time.
I mean, that's normal. Okay, that's normal. We can expect that.
Listen, yes, for the Shad Spawn, I'm on time.
Okay.
It's all about priorities in life, Cordy. You got to get your priorities in line, son. The Shad
special award for Shad Spawn.
We'll wake up early for Shad Spawn, Bubba. I guarantee you.
Shad Spawn and dinner. You're there with.
Oh yeah, yes. I come running. It's the fish's dinner or my dinner. We won't be on top of both of them. Yeah. What else? Anybody got any other questions? No? Y'all sure?
You don't have them for hummingbird, do you?
No, man, no.
Not yet.
No. I can sit here and talk to you till I was blue in the face about the complications. Hummingbird and Garmin both limit the amount of trails you can use. So the way I built them, you can only have 50 trails on Hummingbird or Garmin. So I've got 400-something trails, so that's a problem, right? Well, then you go back and try to mark it as one trail, and it creates these little ghost lines so you can do a start, stop, record deal on Lawrence, where I can go back over all those trails and make them one. That takes multiple days, full days on the water doing it. It's time consuming, and I've got a lot of guide trips right now. But B, when I've gone out and done it, it starts connecting this trail to that trail. Like, it just, because it's all one trail, like, has these little ghost lines. And if you zoom out, it connects them. And if you zoom in, it goes away. It's just a weird deal, and I'm not going to sell a product like that. Like, we're going to clean it up, and we're trying to figure out how to clean it up. And to be honest with you, I really don't know how right now. I've just tried updating software, make sure my point one's operational and updated, make sure my software, my graph's updated. So I'm going to try it again, and hopefully that'll solve it. That's what the people at Rants told me, but I don't think that's going to make any difference. But we're actually working together with Curtis, because he has somebody that's really smart with IT that apparently helped him with he experienced the same issue. And it took him a long time to come out with Humminbird because of it, and he still hasn't come out with Garmin because of it. So we're working on it. We're hoping to get them as soon as possible. I know we want to have them before the Elite Series because, I know several of those guys, and I know they want to run them. So, in fact, we already had a couple of guys that ordered them already. So on the pre-order deal. So. All right. You got anything else?
I'll give you a sneaky tough day bite. I know some of y'all said you're like struggling real bad.
Yeah.
I'll give you one. That's like my go-to. And the only time that sucks is like
Cody said no. You're not supposed to tell this.
Cody don't even do this. What you talking about?
This Cody.
No, that Cody.
Oh. I'm gonna tell it anyways.
All right.
All right. He's just gonna tell you.
Texas rigged. I've been like the one I found this color the other day in the clout, and I really like it. I think it's Shiner Magic or something.
Electric Shiner?
Yeah, Electric Shiner.
Yeah.
That color.
That's a bad color, dude. That color.
Texas rigging it weightless. I cut a little bit of the tail off and screwing one of them blades in the tail.
Are you swimming it or just dobbing it around?
Keeping it moving most of the time. I kind of change it up like every couple of casts. I'll throw one up there, and just like the same places you would go down the bank for your shad spawn, or like maybe you had a shad spawn there this morning, you might go back in the afternoon and I'll throw that around like the docks or the brush, stumps, whatever. And sometimes I'll let it sink just a little bit and just give it like a slow whine and that little worm, and it kind of rolls a little bit and it'll kind of twitch some, and that'll blade. Just little bitty. The ones I use are the Keith Pochet Humdinger. They're Colorado blades about that big with the screw in them, and you wind it around, or I'll just like almost working it like a weightless Cinco or like a Carolina rig. I'll just kind of like drag it and it'll go, and then like what's unique about it is the way the hook kind of keeps the nose, like instead of it falling down, that it'll keep it almost flat, so when it falls, that worm falls flat, and that little tail spinner just like a big Colorado blade spinnerbait, and it'll just helicopter down a little bit, and you just kind of give it a little sweep and drag, or like kind of up over your shoulder, and it'll go, just kind of do that. And I've been getting some pretty good bites doing that. It's one of those like a yeah, it's like kind of sneaky. There's not a lot of guys doing it.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like one of them struggle mill kind of deals, you know.
And
it's
that can be a key on this lake when it gets tough, you know, because pressure and everything. It's just sometimes just giving them a different look.
Yeah.
Can change everything. And that, you know, you're giving them a different look with something like that.
And then, you know, obviously, like I'll change up colors, and you don't have to use the clout. That's one that I've picked up here recently that I just like the color of it, and it kind of helps blend in with that Shad Spawn, because it's kind of got that darker side to it, but it's almost got that pearlescent looking belly on it.
What?
A few little flakes in it.
When the Shad Spawn was first starting, I was throwing that whale a lot, and they've kind of gotten off that whale bite, and they're starting to hollow belly a little bit. But that whale, I was throwing it in electric shiner most of the time.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a great color.
And like, I'll still play with my colors. Like, there's some days, like I'll kind of go through colors till I'll figure out, because one day they'll want just like an old school black and blue, a Cinco, or just whatever stick bait brand you like. I mean, there's not one better than the other. But like some days I'll throw that black and blue around, and they'll just nail it, you know. And I'm like, man, I'm getting bit a lot. And then some days, like the next day I got the black and blue, they won't touch it. And I'm like, I'll put on like some kind of green pumpkin with a black flake or a gold flake, and they'll just start nailing it. So there's piles of jacked up Cincos all over the bottom of my boat, because one day it's the light color, the next day it's the dark color. In the morning they'll want one color, in the afternoon when the sun gets up or the clouds roll over, you got to change colors again. But yeah, just little 5-inch, just screwing it in the deal, and it's you would think it's super light, but you can actually throw it pretty decent. I throw it on like a 7-foot medium heavy, like a little bit of a softer rod, and 14, 16 pound fluorocarbon, like a 3/0 or 4/0 hook. You know, I try to match the hook up the best I can, and just winding it around, throwing it at stuff, and it goes in and out of stuff really well. You know, you don't get snagged up very much, pretty weedless, and it's one of those that's kind of a sneaky deal that you can get bit on pretty semi-regular, I would say, at least on the bad days.
We used to do that on the California Delta a lot.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah, I do the little hitchhiker blades.
Yep, that's exactly what I'm doing.
Yeah, it's kind of a deal that's kind of come and gone in popularity a little bit, but it's it's been around for a little while.
Yeah.
It's been around for a little while, but it kind of it's just never really taken hold, like really been a real popular thing to do, but it's really effective. I mean, yeah, it's kind of like everything else. You know, you ever have those techniques where you think back and you're like, man, why don't I do that anymore?
Yeah.
We used to catch them. That's how this deal feels for me,
Yeah.
because before I was guiding when I was fishing tournaments, dude, I catch a lot of chicks throwing that little rig right there in the springtime in
It's a
April,
good
May.
fit fish.
Yeah, and you can catch some good fish doing it, man. And you're just catching fish that nobody else is because you're showing them a different look. And then you just kind of get away from it. They stop biting for a little while. You get away from it, and you kind of forget about it.
Yeah.
So thanks for reminding me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Appreciate that. I'm going to go catch all your fish now.
That's fine.
All right. I'm going to try anyway. I'm going to give them hell.
I'm in the sneaky spots. Like, you'll be looking that.
Oh, I'll find you.
I'm sneaky, man. I cut my hair off. I got a new boat. Like, no one knows me.
I just put a GPS device in your pocket. You didn't even know about it. So. Be good. I know you don't change your clothes but once a week from Oklahoma.
Dude, just because I wore these 2 days in a row. Damn. Just 2 days. I mean, I didn't even catch no fish today.
That's right. That's right. I bet you didn't. Well, man, guys, I appreciate you guys coming as always. Do me a favor. If you go buy anything from 6 Cents Fishing, please use the code Your Lake Fork Guide. Waterland glasses, any of that, just use Your Lake Fork Guide for your discount code. We'll sure appreciate it. It'll save you a little bit of money. If you need a guide for anything, you can always reach us at yourlakeforkguide.com. My man, Cord Huckins, would love to have you out. Vic Pierce, I'd love to have you out. I'd love to have you out. Cody Mays, David Ozio. And we got actually quite a few other guys we work with as well that just don't, they're a little camera shy. So, which is understandable around here. Have y'all heard some of the drama going on around here lately? Oh my goodness. It just never stops, man. It never stops. Hey, and I've actually stayed out of it. I've actually stayed out of it for once. I'm proud of myself.
It's amazing drama that comes with being a guy.
Here's what I always say. I don't understand it, man. Fishermen, the only guys on earth, go to work in flip-flops and be mad all day. Everybody else that goes to work in flip-flops pretty happy. Like, the dude at the surf shack's like, what's up, bro? You know what I mean? Like, but fishermen out here like, you on my spot. You know, like, why are we mad? I don't know. I don't know.
That's why you fish the ugly, nasty stuff, and you ain't got to worry about none of them other
that's the
fellows
key.
coming around.
Cord
I
Huckins
coming out here
figured
with
it out.
CF numbers and not TX numbers.
Oh, really?
Oh, boy. Yeah, it was bad. Real bad.
I'll tell you, the worst I ever had is when I had yellow power poles. Well, they could see me from across the lake, boy. It was bad then. It was bad. That's all right. Well, man, thank you guys. Like I said, if anybody needs bow lanes, just let me know. I've got a bag full of them right here. And as of this evening, they'll be selling them downstairs anytime y'all want to come get some. Even if you don't want them, tell your buddies maybe they'll want them, and I'll appreciate that. So thank you guys, and thank Lake Fork Marine for being the gracious host they always are. We'll be back in 2 weeks. Thank y'all.